Hi guys, welcome back. This is Swordwind. We are the Charlotte branch of the New York Historical Fencing Association, and in this video we're going to continue our series on solo drills with looking at winding. Winding, for those of my students who have shamed me and don't remember, is basically just transitioning between guards. You can kind of take the term very broadly to be basically any way you should be moving a sword that is not an attack. More specifically, transitioning from guard to guard, especially the point forward guards. Ops and flu. One of the kind of really foundational winding things that you need to get, well, winding is just one of the very foundational pieces of KDF that you really can't practice enough of. There are only 4 corners to go to, but transitioning between them fluidly is not only important for your ability to kind of snappily switch between guards when it is tactically necessary to do so, when you are approaching your opponent. It is also, and I would say kind of more importantly, important for your ability to defend yourself artfully. Anybody can kind of beat a thrust or cut aside. It takes practice to be able to set something aside with your hilt while sticking your point into your opponent's face. These are motions that are conceptually very easy, but really need to be drilled into your reflexes. So one of the things we do as a warm-up at Swordwind is we'll pick a guard to start in. I oftentimes start in right flug, which is kind of stereotypically a sort of defensive guard, and then just walk forward, transitioning around the 4 points of the corner. Now your trick here is to keep that point, the point of your sword, as stationary as possible while your hands are making this big movement around your sort of cone of defense here. Here, here, here. It's all right for the tip to move a little bit, but you want to minimize that as much as possible. Set your tip where your opponent's face would be, and just practice, can I keep it there while taking a step and ending in a proper guard? I want to emphasize, when you are doing this sort of drill at home, make yourself honest. Make sure that that guard is in fact proper. It's easy, especially when you're doing this over and over, kind of walking back and forth across your backyard, for instance. Start out properly with your hands and hilt properly placed, and then as you get going, kind of get lazy and transition into this sort of thing where my hilt isn't outside my silhouette and therefore is not actually defending me against cuts, against any incoming cuts. So rewatch our videos on these guards if you need to, especially if you're one of my students. Make sure that your hands are placed correctly, that your cross guard is placed correctly. It's also very easy as you're going back and forth to transition into this sort of vertical cross guard position, which also doesn't actually offer any protection to the hands. Side note for those of you who are not religious watchers of this channel, and I'm not saying I blame you, I am aware that the vertical cross guard is depicted in some manuals. If you're not from NIFA, then your teacher may prefer that version for some reason, and as long as you buy that reason, that's fine. For my students who are watching this, I want that cross guard out for all the reasons that we have discussed on our guard videos and in class. Now, the direction, kind of the pattern of winding is not important. You can kind of make this Z pattern if you want, but you can start from any guard you want and go to any guard you want, as long as you're ending in the right place with your hilt your tip is not moving very much, and your feet are correct. So for instance, if I'm starting in left flug here, and I want to go up into left ox, I need to make sure that I'm not doing that with a passing step, because now my sword is on my left side and my left foot is advanced. Instead, I would do that with a shuffle step or with a lunge, so that my blade foot opposition is maintained. So I can play around with the pattern that I'm doing. I can even restrict myself to certain guards to see, just kind of like drill that over and over. Transitioning between oxes is a physically demanding maneuver. Okay, so your shoulders may hate you for it, but they will thank you in the ring, or God forbid in a real fight, when you can do this naturally, quickly, fluidly. So those are some things to watch out for, to focus on. One more thing, besides that your hilt is in the right orientation and in the right spot, that your tip is not moving very much, that your feet are following correctly. You can also practice thrusts this way. Thrusting in the air is not something that we tend to practice that much. That's not to say that we shouldn't, and those of you in class will hopefully have fond memories of our 250 thrust drill. But you can do this at home as part of winding. Right here I'm transitioning over kind of in a defensive way, but I'm not really throwing my point forward. That's fine. There are times when this is perfectly appropriate. There are also times when it's appropriate to do kind of a more Absetson-like action, where instead of just transitioning over to another guard, I'm going to do so in a way that spirals forward and puts my point aggressively forward. So not this, but this. Not this, but this. You can do this with every motion if you want to, although I find that kind of unnatural. What I prefer to do is kind of pick one of the four corners that I'm going to make a thrust. So I might say, all right, the thrust I'm going to do is when I go into left ox. Up until now, I've just kind of been winding, and now I'm going to make this as snappy and forward as possible. Bam! Right? How good was that? Frankly, not really. My point, you may have noticed, went all the way over here. Okay, so let's do it again. Boom! Keep yourself honest with these things. Don't go faster than you can critique yourself. Frankly, that's a good way to push your brain to be able to see faster and faster actions regardless. So that's it for this drill. This is, again, something that you can practice kind of like going back and forth across a space like our ribbon cuts drill, so that you're not just standing in one spot. You can also, of course, do it backwards, since there are plenty of occasions when you need to retreat and move your sword into one of the four kind of archetypal defensive guards of the Lichtenauer system. I hope this has been useful for you guys. We will see you next week with another video. Take care.